The cold wind howled through the ancient corridors of St. Benedict's Monastery, perched atop the lonely cliffs of Black Hollow. The monastery, known for its devotion and solitude, carried an eerie reputation. Every new priest who had ever stepped through its doors met a mysterious and gruesome end. Yet the church continued to send replacements, as if compelled by an unseen force. Father Michael arrived just before sunset, his heart steady with faith but his mind plagued by whispered warnings. The villagers had refused to accompany him beyond the monastery's iron gates, their faces pale with unspoken terror. "Leave before the night takes you," an old woman had muttered, clutching a rosary. Inside, the monastery was eerily silent, save for the distant sound of dripping water. A handful of monks greeted him, pale-faced men with hollow eyes who moved like shadows. Abbot Bernard, an old and weary man, placed a wrinkled hand on Michael's shoulder. "You must be tired," the abbot said. "Rest well tonight. Morning prayers begin at dawn." Michael was led to a small stone chamber lit by a single candle. As he lay on the hard cot, the silence pressed against his ears. Then, somewhere in the depths of the monastery, he heard it, a soft whisper like the rustling of robes against stone. He sat up, straining to listen. "Father." The voice was barely audible, but it was there. It slithered through the cold air like a serpent. Michael stepped out into the corridor, the candle in his hand flickering violently. The hall was empty, yet the whispers grew louder. He followed the sound through the winding passageways, descending deeper into the monastery. His breath turned to mist as the air thickened with dampness. Then he saw it, a door, ancient and rusted, standing slightly ajar. A wave of unease gripped his chest. Michael pushed it open. Inside, the walls were lined with skulls, hundreds of them. Some bore deep cracks, others had strange markings etched into the bone. The room stank of decay, and in the center, upon a stone altar, lay a fresh corpse. A priest's robe covered its withered frame, its hollow eye sockets staring at the ceiling. A gasp escaped Michael's lips as he stepped closer. The body's hands were folded over a leather-bound book. His fingers trembled as he pried it free. The pages were brittle with age, but the words sent ice through his veins. "They will not let us leave. We are the keepers of their hunger. Beware the shadows, for they are alive. The price of faith is blood." The whispers rose into a chorus of hissing voices. The candle in Michael's hand extinguished, plunging the room into darkness. Then something moved. A wet, slithering sound filled the air. Cold fingers brushed against his neck. He turned, but there was nothing there, only darkness, shifting like a living thing. His pulse thundered as he stumbled backward. A low, guttural whisper rasped through the void. "You should not have come." The door slammed shut. Michael pressed against it, his heart hammering. The whispers turned to laughter, soft, mocking, hungry. Then came the pain. A cold hand pressed against his chest, and a searing agony tore through him. He choked, gasping for air as the unseen force dragged him into the abyss. The next morning, the monks found his body in the chapel. His face was frozen in horror, his hands twisted as if clawing at something unseen. Abbot Bernard closed his eyes, whispering a solemn prayer. The village of Black Hollow trembled with fear as the news spread. Another priest had perished at St. Benedict's Monastery. Father Michael's lifeless body had been discovered in the chapel, his face frozen in terror, his hands contorted as if he had fought against some unseen force. The church, unmoved by the growing number of deaths, prepared to send another priest. This time, it was Father Gabriel. Unlike the others before him, Father Gabriel was not naive. He had heard the stories, the whispers of a curse, and the warnings of the villagers. But he was not a man easily swayed by fear. He believed in logic, in truth, in the power of faith to dispel the darkness. So when the church requested him to go to St. Benedict's, he did not hesitate. The journey to the monastery was grueling. The winding path up the cliff was shrouded in mist, the howling wind carrying the distant sound of church bells. But there was something else too, something just beyond the edge of sound, a faint whisper that made the hairs on his arms rise. When Gabriel arrived, the monks greeted him in their usual manner, silent, pale, and watchful. Abbot Bernard, standing at the monastery's entrance, offered him the same words he had given all before him. "You must be tired," the abbot said. "Rest well tonight. Morning prayers begin at dawn." But Father Gabriel had no intention of resting. That night, As the monastery fell into its eerie silence, he began his investigation. Clad in his robes, a candle in one hand and a crucifix in the other, he ventured into the dark corridors. Every step echoed against the cold stone walls, and the flickering flame cast shadows that danced like living things. Then, the whispers began. Soft at first, like the distant murmurs of prayer, but soon they grew louder, wrapping around him in ghostly tendrils. "You should not have come." Gabriel tightened his grip on the crucifix. "Who speaks?" he demanded. The whispers twisted into laughter, echoing from the depths below. He followed the sound, his resolve unwavering. Step by step, he descended into the monastery's lower levels, the air thick with an unbearable stench. Then he found it, the door. It was the same ancient, rusted door that Father Michael had discovered before his demise. Gabriel hesitated only for a moment before pushing it open. Inside, the walls bore the same grotesque collection of skulls, their hollow eyes seeming to watch him. But there was something different this time, something worse. The stone altar in the center of the room was empty. No corpse, no book, just a gaping hole in the ground, like the maw of some ancient beast. A chill ran down Gabriel's spine. He knew instinctively that whatever horror plagued this monastery did not rest in these bones. It was something older, something deeper, something alive. Then the shadows moved. From the darkness beyond the altar, a figure emerged. Not a monk, not a man, but something else entirely. Its form was wrapped in swirling black mist, its face hidden behind an ancient wooden mask carved with symbols of forgotten faiths. "They feed on us," the figure whispered, its voice a chorus of many. Gabriel raised his crucifix. "Who are you?" The figure stepped closer, the mist curling around Gabriel's feet like grasping fingers. "We were priests once," it whispered. "We came in faith. We stayed in death." A horrific realization struck Gabriel. The spirits of the priests who had perished here had not simply died. They had been taken, absorbed into something ancient, something insatiable. He turned to flee, but the whispers rose in a deafening roar. "You cannot leave." The candle in his hand extinguished, plunging the chamber into absolute darkness. Then the pain came. Something cold and unseen wrapped around him, pressing into his skin like needles of ice. His breath hitched, his heart thundered. He could feel himself being pulled, his very soul unraveling. But Gabriel was not like the others. He did not surrender. With every ounce of strength he had, he clutched the crucifix and began to pray. The words of the exorcism rang out through the chamber, defiant and unyielding. The darkness recoiled, screeching in fury. Light erupted from the crucifix, illuminating the chamber for the first time in centuries. The figure writhed, its form flickering like a dying flame. And then, silence. When Gabriel opened his eyes, he was alone. The whispers had ceased. The shadows no longer moved. The chamber, once a tomb of horror, was now nothing more than cold stone. He stumbled out, gasping for air. As he ascended the monastery steps, the first rays of dawn broke over the cliffs. Abbot Bernard was waiting for him. But something was different. The old man's hands trembled, his eyes wide with something that looked almost like fear. Gabriel met his gaze. "The curse is broken." The abbot shook his head slowly. "No, Father Gabriel," he whispered. "It has only begun." That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to NextTube. Hit the bell icon for more thrilling stories. See you in the next